Greetings, Tezos Nation. Welcome to another edition of TezTalks Live. I'm Stu from the Tezos Commons. Joining me today is Billy Housh, Tezos baker, educator, gamer, and technology enthusiast. Billy is joining us today to discuss the current state of the Tezos ecosystem and provide his insights into the ongoing quest to bring Web3 and blockchain-powered gaming to life here in the Tezos ecosystem and beyond. Hi, Billy. Where are you right now, and how is the weather?
Hey, Stu. Thanks for having me on. I'm here coming live from Grimsby, Ontario,
Grimsby. What a name.
Grimsby, nestled in between Niagara and Toronto. I guess we're right in the middle there.
Lovely.
And it is cold and snowing outside. And I'm also getting over a cold from shoveling snow, but it's all good. How are you?
I'm in Vancouver. It's
Yes.
rainy here as per usual. So we generally start out our TezTalks episodes by asking our guests to walk us through their journey down the blockchain rabbit hole. But you have kind of a interesting backstory that I'd like to get into a little bit first. So can you start off by telling us a bit about your personal and professional background?
Sure. So I'm a teacher. I'm a college and university instructor. I'm a professor. I teach at Wilfrid Laurier and George Brown. I teach film studies class and game design classes. My background is in popular culture and film studies, and I've been a lifelong gamer, which was a way of parlaying everything all into what I teach and what I do. I'm also quite a tech enthusiast, and that's partly how I fell down the rabbit hole of blockchain, and it definitely is a rabbit hole.
It
Uh,
certainly is. So if we can just focus on your educating background a little bit, what kind of work do you do with game developers exactly?
so I mainly teach them basics of game design, basically how you're creating a space, almost like how an IKEA is designed, where you have a person going through a maze and you're trying to provide an experience to them. Ultimately, you're building an aesthetic for the user. So it's a lot of user design. Because of my background being in film and film studies, I'm teaching a lot of that, a lot of like lighting, narrative, storytelling, and how to use visual storytelling to tell your basically your game's story, creating agency for the player to move on and actually play the game. So a lot of stuff like that, like cutscene, working on cutscenes and stuff like that, but also building a story and building a reason for them to play the game.
Well, I would say that modern games, by and large, these days are pretty cinematic in the experience that you get, right? Like there's a pretty strong link between the world of film and the world of gaming at this stage. Would you agree?
Absolutely, especially in what we call as AAA gaming. So that's you have Sony making the PlayStation, and Sony's background is in not only just creating these electronic devices, but in film.
Hmm.
So they've kind of built a niche in creating these huge franchises that are these cinematic spectacles that are showing crazy graphics and whatnot to sell the hardware, but also fun games to play that now we have games, we have TV shows, HBO shows, and movies that are based on games instead of vice versa. So it's really come a long way, and the game industry makes quite a bit more money than the film industry now. It's surpassed film, and it's probably the biggest entertainment product uh, money wise. So it's become a big part of the forefront. Especially what was it? It was in 2000 and I think it was 2019. Netflix had a shareholders meeting where they said their biggest threat isn't HBO, it's Fortnite. It's
Mm.
video games for getting space. So that's why it's a very important medium. And some of us old timers, maybe like me, remember when video games weren't really taken that seriously as a medium, like back in like even like 8-bit days. And there was a big crash in the 80s where games did not do well, but now they're here to stay, and it really has that generation that grew up with gaming now is the ones that have the financial capital as well as the cultural capital to push it forward. So that's why it is a big deal. It is a big.
Absolutely. So, coming from that background, how did you first find your way into the exciting world of blockchain technology?
That's a good question, and I like that how you originally said it is a rabbit hole for sure. The way that I fell down this was during when I was still in school. It was finishing up my undergrad in film, and this was 2012. You could go further back from that of just the technology, because I'm like a big film buff. There's a lot of movies that lose distribution and you can't find them anymore. The
Mm,
only way to find them are through illicit, like piracy, basically. That's the only way you can access these movies, where it's even like a gray area since you can't buy them anymore. So I would I got into file sharing in the sense of BitTorrent.
mm,
So BitTorrent is actually up north here, University of Buffalo. This I think his name is Bram Cohen. He invented it. So it was like it started at a local thing around in this Niagara area. Learned about this new tech of decentralizing data to be able to not only is it you can't really pin it down to someone. It's just like a tracker, and the
yeah.
files are not on the tracker, but it spreads the files around, and it makes it faster. The more people that are on downloading it, the faster you can download the file. So that was a cool technology. So I had a basis of the tech around blockchain. Like I had a kind of an idea of where like the seeds of this type of tech came from.
Yeah.
Anyways, going back to 2012, one of my buddies who at that time was working at one of the big telecom companies here in Canada here. We won't name names, even though he doesn't work there anymore. Um, he told me about he's like, there's this weird thing that we keep talking about in the audio in the office about the dark web and like Tor browser. He's like, you should really check it around because he knew that I'm like into like technology and like all the fringes of technology as well. I'm like, okay, so one summer I like downloaded Tor browser and I went onto like the dark web. And yeah, a lot of the stuff from it, I'm like, this is this is like really sus. But
Speaking of rabbit holes, right?
exactly, exactly. I mainly was just laughing at all like the conspiracy theorists and stuff that were hiding on there and stuff. But that's where I learned about people were all talking about Bitcoin and
Yeah.
mining it, and all the information from that I was learning from that. And then I started to get interested into Bitcoin and seeing what this stuff is, that you can't it's this new currency that is separate from the banking system and revolutionary and all this stuff, and that you can mine. At that time you could mine it yourself on your computer. There was little
Mhm.
programs you could download. um, Following that, and like even the emergence of like ant miners and machines, that was interesting to me, of like the tech of how you get your computer set up to be able to make money from like crunching numbers and stuff
Mhm.
like that. That was really cool, and setting up that kind of stuff. Once again, I'm one of those stories where we don't want to talk about it, where I owned some Bitcoin, where I sold when it was like worthless, where I try not, that's a like you kind of blur that space out because it's devastating when you think of what the value it is. But yeah, I cashed out when it was like 980 bucks, and I thought that, oh, it's never going to go up.
That
So
$1,000 threshold seemed like a pretty
yeah,
big deal at one point.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so that sort of backstory, getting into the space, how did that lead you to become involved with the Tezos ecosystem?
So I had some friends that were part of the Tezos. It was actually a friend where I explained to him Bitcoin back in the day, and then years later, they came back to me and explained to me Tezos. And I thought it was so cool that you can have a baker, and having a baker and holding X amount of Tez, you are able to vote on the blockchain's upgrade path. that blew my mind. That was like what I wanted in Bitcoin. The problem with what I never trusted with Bitcoin was the mystery behind it, where there wasn't like, you don't know who created it or whatever. And
Mhm.
that felt kind of sketchy, that like, where is this going? Is this eventually going to be like like a rug pull or what have you? And it just felt weird that there was no transparency to it. It just didn't make any sense. Whereas Tezos had perfect transparency to it. And that was, I saw that this was the one that would be the future. Like this is how it should be. If you're trying to claim that this is a currency for the people, and it's like outside of how like systems work and like World Bank systems work, where they like control stuff, and we want to be transparent, give the power to the end user, this makes the most sense to having a democratic process to it. And that instantly won me over. And as well as the whole tech geek side of me, of being able to like create a little baking machine. I thought that was really cool. And that was the new rabbit hole that I fell down, was like figuring out how to like learning like basic Linux, and like figuring out how to set up a baker machine that I could put under my desk somewhere and have it like participate in a blockchain's like democratic process. I thought that's just so wild and
Yeah.
cool.
And you, as far as I'm aware, you're still baking to this day, correct?
Yes, I am. So in 2020, I started my baker, and at that point, it was still like private, and there was still like some like kinks I had to get out of it.
Mhm.
And then, pretty much by the end of that year until now, I've been a baker in the ecosystem, and I
Okay.
vote and all that stuff. And yeah,
Can you tell us a little bit about what that journey has been like? If you've been, because you've been doing it for a while, right?
yes, yeah. Another thing, and this ties into that question, another thing that attracted me to the Tezos community is that they're like everyone's friendly and helpful. It's not so much of like, there's like a known culture of like kind of like troll behavior and like degen behavior. And sure, like some of that does exist as in like almost like as a meme, as a joke or whatever. But overall, everyone's really supportive of each other and ready to like step in and help. And that kind of feeds into that spirit of democracy, and just like, this is for the people. We're trying to push each other up to help create this and keep this
Mm.
thing going. So that was an awesome aspect of it. And yeah, I had a lot of like, I needed a lot of help at the beginning, being able to properly set up the baker. But there was like tons of people on Twitter, on Discord, super friendly and ready to step in and help. So many projects that were working on software and front ends to just make it easier to maintain and to pay out. So I started with the now they're called Tez Capital, but the Bake Buddy software that now is, it's all called Tez Bake. I've been doing this so long that all the names have changed, but they were so helpful over Discord, helping me like set up the baker. The software side of it was
Yeah.
difficult, and getting everything to be able to like maintain it properly and pay out everyone on time, and and just learning that stuff encouraged me to want to pay it forward. Whereas then I started to, my background is in education. So I thought, okay, like this stuff, if we just make a simple video explaining how to do this and showing how to do this, this is going to help a lot of people that like were in my situation. Like,
Mm.
instead of reading all these like GitHub docs and going through that, just make an easy video. So I did that. I made a video on how to set up your first baker. And that was a hit. A lot of people then came and reached out to me asking for questions, and
Mhm.
almost like a mentorship, that I got to like help other bakers get themselves set up, and bakers that are now like way bigger than me even, which is like really exciting and cool. And being able to do that, I also made videos about uh, helping end users how to, at that time it was delegating, it was before staking, how to delegate your Tez to a baker just going through that, because there was a lot of people from the NFT world that were jumping in on Tez to start providing their NFTs, because it's like the gas and all that stuff is like way better for like a starving artist to be able to like actually get their NFTs out and actually make a profit or what have you. So there was an influx of them. So I made these videos teaching people how to delegate. And now I probably need to update those videos and talk about staking now, the difference between that. But
where can all these be found?
So if you look on if you search on YouTube and go to search Canadian Bacon, that's the name of my baker, is called Canadian Bacon. Bacon as in with like an apostrophe, not ing, but in.
Okay. BAKIN?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
So you can find that on YouTube, and on my Twitter page, I've also posted videos and links to that. X, on my X page. You can find those as well. Tutorials to help people.
Okay. And what has Tezos Baking for this period of time taught you about what differentiates Tezos from the other players in this sort of crowded field?
I like definitely just the whole being able to contribute to the ecosystem and not just being like a completely anonymous user, which you can be if you want. If you choose to be, you can just be a passive participant. But the fact that you can be an active participant in the system, in the blockchain, that's the biggest difference for me. And that and once again, just having that wonderful community, a supportive community of people it's not people trying to push each other down, it's people trying to push each other up, which was the biggest difference for me. Like it's not this like toxic kind of like stream of like people that are just trying to like show off to each other or one up each other. It's a supportive community, which is, I think that's the most important thing that attracts me. But for sure, the whole democratic side of it and just having a choice of being an active participant is like amazing.
So as far as being an active participant goes, you've mentioned that you actively do baking. It sounds like you actively participate in voting on protocol upgrades and those kinds of things. What other aspects are there to being an active participant? Like, do you participate in beta testing, that kind of thing?
Yes. So being part of Tezos for a while, and also I guess just getting known for making those videos, those tutorial videos, there's been a lot of people that would come to me and like show me their new projects that they're working on in the system. And I had the opportunity to like have a first say of like beta testing, like games and different protocols and stuff that people are coming up with. And that's been really cool, of being able to like implement some of my skills that I get from my day job to Tezos. So a lot of these projects, some of them they're like NDA or kind of like quasi NDA, so I don't want to go into details with them, but about them. But being able to talk about gaming, because I know it's been a difficult ride trying to marry these two things together, because you're dealing with it was a bad start between the gaming community, and I mean like the core gaming community, as in like people that play PC games and console games, because that's almost a different space with mobile gaming. Mobile gaming is also is a good fit with blockchain, but I think being able to get into the AAA space would be like the end game. That would be what would put this on stage, on like the center stage. So I get that, especially like I was one of those people back in during like the pandemic and like the huge big crypto craze, where I was trying to buy a new graphics card and I couldn't find it and the prices were ridiculous. And from that point till now, the prices are still ridiculous. So a lot of that animosity that like gamers have put that onto like crypto. They kind of like see it in a bad light, like they were rubbed in the wrong way, and kind of blame crypto for a lot of like taking away their games or trying to like scam them or make it like things more expensive for them. So that's the really difficult hump that there needs to be some healing.
Well, I would like to talk about that hump and how we get over that hump. Um, when we're getting there, but I there's a couple things I want to ask you before we go fully down that road, because I think there's a lot to talk about there.
Okay.
Now, here we are in 2025. You've been baking, you've been an active ecosystem participant for some time. What's the current state of the Tezos ecosystem in 2025 as you see it?
I see it kind of on par with the ecosystem of like crypto altogether, where it's come back to like this baseline where it feels like things are coming back up because we were going through a winter for a bit.
Mm.
And now it just feels like there's a little bit more excitement coming back to the ecosystem. So I think new projects, this would be the time for it. And I hope that I mean, I know about a few projects that are going on in the background, but I think that this is a good time that if someone has these ideas, they should push and get them onto present them in front of people, because it feels like things are starting to come back to what they used to be during a bit of our heyday in 2021 and whatnot. So I think it's more of a positive space is what I'm seeing.
It's definitely an interesting time, not, here in the ecosystem, in the Tezos ecosystem, and in the sort of the larger blockchain ecosystem as well, where it does feel there's momentum again. Things are changing in terms of the regulations surrounding this stuff, and it's becoming a little bit more legitimized. A lot of I think, like what you were talking about earlier, where a lot of people had this feeling that there was this massive rug pull coming for the entire industry, that it's going to get to a certain point and then all of a sudden it's going to go to zero. I think at this point, it's safe to say that that's off the table. There's not a zero moment coming, or at least it doesn't appear that there is. I think it's been around long enough that we can put that idea to bed, right? And
Exactly.
I think that lends legitimacy to the entire endeavor itself. If people feel like it's safe to invest in this space, you're not going to, I mean, unless you're investing in some meme coin. If you're investing in one of the more established ecosystems, the chances of your investment going to zero are almost nothing, right? So people are a bit more comfortable getting involved, and that's an interesting time for all of us. And I do want to really go down that gaming thing, because I think that's a really important use case and definitely worth a conversation worth having. But before we do that, are you ready for the world famous TezTalks lightning round?
I think so. Yeah. I'll.
Awesome. Then it's lightning round time.
Okay.
Remember, this is just for fun. There are no wrong answers. We just want our viewers to be able to get to know you a little bit better. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Are you a night owl or an early riser?
A night owl.
Exercise or naps?
Exercise.
Movies or video games?
Video games.
Ooh, that was a tough one for you, isn't it? What's your favorite country to visit for a vacation?
Japan.
Excellent answer. If you were elected king of the world, what's the first thing you would do?
Create democracy and then fire myself.
Name one thing you will never do again.
Get addicted to sugary pops.
Okay. I thought you were going to say sell my Bitcoin for 960.
Yeah, that would have been a better one. Yeah.
What's the secret to happiness?
Secret to happiness is proper expectations.
Excellent answer. Do you have any pets?
Oh, do I have any pets? Not anymore. No. I used to.
It's funny how often that question ends up being sad. People are like, well,
yeah, it reminds you of like, oh.
I apologize.
No worries.
Apologize for opening old wounds. And finally, what is your favorite thing to do on a rainy day?
play a really good video game.
Thank you. Those were excellent answers. This concludes the TezTalks lightning round. Let's get back into it.
Okay.
Now that we've talked about your background and your journey down the blockchain technology rabbit hole, I would like to pick your brain a bit on the Web3 gaming space and what's happening there. As I mentioned earlier, you're involved in educating people who are interested in game design. So in your conversations in that arena, how often does the topic of Web3 and blockchain-based gaming come up?
Not so much these days. It did before, where there was some students that were into that space, talking about how to implement NFTs into games. But right now, it seems to be, yeah, there's right now, especially in Canada. Canada's famous for a lot, both. We're famous for AAA studio games. So like we have like Ubisoft in Montreal making the Assassin's Creed games. We have EA in I think Edmonton, Alberta. They're making like all the Dragon Age and Mass Effect games and stuff like that. So we have these huge studios, even Rockstar North. But we also have some of the best indie games being made here. Like we've got games that are made by like one person that will take over the world, no problem. And I think that's also like a good space for focusing in on blockchain. Like the game of the year, basically one of the games of the year from last year was a game called Balatro, which I believe was made by one person from Saskatchewan. And this game has taken over everything. It's on every single platform. It's even on phone. And it's basically like a video poker kind of deal of a game, which 100% would fit well with making some sort of like blockchain implementation to it. And I think focusing in on getting in on these like indie game developers and stuff, which is like it seems to be that's where a lot of like our game designers are coming from that are working on blockchain. Being able to help them come up with like proper ideas that aren't just like shoehorning in blockchain, I think it's just the spark of finding like a proper implementation that just makes sense for everyone, is what we're waiting for and hoping to like find. But yeah, these days, not so much. It could be because I'm teaching more of like the film classes where I'm teaching about like cutscenes and stuff like that. So those discussions don't really come about. But when I was focusing on like the nitty gritty game design ones, a few students like in a couple of years ago would mention blockchain implementation. So it's kind of so right now.
Okay. And on the flip side of that coin, like you mentioned, people have reached out to you about their gaming projects here in the Web3 space.
Yes.
In your experience, what type of people are interested in Web3 and blockchain powered gaming right now, and what kind of projects are they working on?
The projects that I've seen, first it started with a lot of similar to the beginnings. I would say the cycle of this is similar to the beginnings of mobile gaming. When mobile gaming started to emerge, it was first a lot of like derivative games from the console AAA games. So you would get games that were kind of mimicking big games that were already out there, but making them at a smaller scope and like free to play basically for mobile phones and whatnot.
Mm.
A lot of stuff like that I've seen in the Web 3.0 space, which makes sense, is just people starting from the beginning. So that's the thing. I'm seeing a lot of people that they were technologists in the side of blockchain, but now from scratch, they're getting into game design instead of people that are from game design who understand game economy. So that's the big thing. You need to focus on like, it depends on how you want to implement it, but implementing like game economy. So maybe you want to use blockchain so that people can buy and sell and trade the little trinkets or weapons or whatnot inside the game in the game economy. So like a current game economy that's popular, you could say like Path of Exile 2 has a trading system that can be done outside of the game. You can go to the developer's website, log in, and like auction off certain weapons or what have you to each other. That would be a good way of using a blockchain where people can have wallets and have any types of wallets. It gives you the freedom of using any type of wallet, being able to trade these as NFTs, and having that ownership of it. And it's almost like a win-win for the publisher as well as like the person trading it, because say the publisher demands like a cut from each transaction, that's built into Tezos. So that's something that needs to be emphasized to like the publisher, or explaining to like the end user that another example of this could be creating cosmetics. So instead of weapons is kind of hard because weapons require balancing. So owning a weapon and then promising them that, okay, when the sequel to this game comes out, you can carry your game to that next weapon. Well, it takes a lot of work for the developer to balance that weapon in the new game. So it's not like completely unfair or it's completely garbage. Because if it turns into a pay to win scenario, that usually kills the game. That usually destroys the moral economy of the game. And people are like, and there are games like that, especially in the mobile space where it's just pay to win. But those are mainly like in game design, they say that those are for like whale hunting. If you don't know what that is, you're looking for some like really affluent person that just wants to buy this one big trinket and then like destroy the game for everyone else. So that's not sustainable. That's usually like a fly by night kind of game design. So that's a difficult thing, but a good way, maybe like NFT, is making cosmetics, because a lot of major games now, they don't make, like, you can't buy the weapons because that would destroy the game balance, but you can buy cosmetics. And an idea of user generated cosmetics like NFTs would be amazing, especially using the Tezos system where, okay, the platform can get a certain amount of like cut from it, and then the artist can get a cut every time it's resold. That, I think that would be a huge hit if a game like that was made, where it had the tools for end users to be able to like make skins, make little like trinkets and stuff like that. And then like it has a built-in economy where people can like buy and sell and trade and people can make money off of that. I think that's like a route that people need to focus on or tap into, which I haven't seen a lot of.
Well, that's sort of the next thing that I wanted to get. Like, I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, and I think the value proposition is so clear, and that's why gaming has for a while been viewed as an important use case for blockchain technology, both because of the, as you mentioned earlier, the enormous sums of money that are available in the gaming space, and also the other side of that being the enormous potential to bring new users into blockchain.
Exactly.
And given that the potential, like I can see it, you can see it, how massive the potential is on both ends of that, why do you think we haven't seen this implemented successfully in this space as of yet?
I think the timing of it when it was trying to implement this, but calling them NFTs during the time where we didn't, it was right after the boom of it, where people were starting to feel like, oh, this is like kind of bad for gaming because of like rug pulls, or like, why are these like companies, these huge companies, like promoting NFTs? How is that good for the gamer? I saw a lot of these big companies were just name dropping blockchain and NFT thinking that it had the same fervor or excitement, even though like it took a while for them to start to implement it. It was kind of past like the general population kind of being excited about it. But then they were just saying, look, there's NFTs. Well, to an end user, what is that? How does that communicate it? That like, what's the benefit of that for the end user? So that was the problem. I don't think you need to call them NFTs. I think you just need to run the ecosystem, have it in the background, like that's what it's built on, and then users can download wallets or have the tools where like most games have like their own wiki pages and community pages where people tell each other, explain that. That's organically going to be there. Just implement it as part of the game and move forward. Like you can explain the benefit of it, of like, for me, for example, when I play Call of Duty and I buy like some sort of operator skin, I'm stuck with that. That's attached to my account forever. I can't do anything with that. I
Yeah.
can't trade that. I can't sell that. I can't do anything. Just explaining that this is what you can now do would be like, that would be enough to communicate. So I think it's just a communication problem between the game publisher or designer and the community, the actual gamer. Because the gamer doesn't really, if you say it's an NFT, it doesn't really mean anything to them. Like you need to
Yeah.
just show the utility of it, which I
Yeah.
never seen that communicated well to
Yeah.
someone who knows nothing about blockchain.
I would agree. I would agree completely. And I feel like collectibles,
Mhm.
digital or otherwise, have a really interesting value proposition as well. Like I'm a collector. I collect a bunch of things. And the things that are limited edition and numbered and there's only a certain number out there if enough people want them.
Mhm.
It sort of builds on itself, right? The economy emerges on its own if people want these things, right?
Exactly.
And I would definitely agree that if you can find something that works, it should happen organically, really. And you don't have to call it an NFT. You don't have to call it blockchain. The technology can enable it,
Mhm.
but the thing itself is the thing that people want, and that's that, right? But in terms of finding the thing that people want, like how do we find proper, as you put it, proper utility for blockchain technology within the sort of gaming ecosystem that exists? Is there, as you said, is there an outcome for that intersection where everybody wins?
Like anything with Web 2.0 or Web 3.0, content is king. So having a really good game is going to be it. It has to be a really good game that implements even as basic as just we said, like cosmetics, being able to like have a nice store, a nice user experience, and that's the content. That's like the game design.
Mm,
And then creating we already have wallets and whatnot. That's a choice of everyone, but having it all implemented that, okay, there's really good content that people want, like you explained, collectibles, having like scarcity or certain collectibles that are these cool looking custom cosmetics that, okay, there's only a certain amount of them made. You can have them like sponsored by certain companies or what have you, having those, but it's in a fun game. uh that's pretty much it. And I think the difficulty is because you're getting all that we have right now are people that are completely new to game design.
mm,
Well, it's going to take decades for them to get to a level of like companies that have been making games now for like 40 years, right? So I think creating the tools which are already there, but communicating that to game designers that are already making compelling content is going to be the way.
yeah.
One good game that people want to play that has that economy system implemented well using Tezos, that's going to be it. But yeah, like once again, if I could like come up with a really amazing game, I probably wouldn't be here right now. But like that's going to be it. Just like a very good game that people want to play, and then Tezos being the backbone for the trading system and the economy system for users to be able to like own their little trinkets and be able to sell or trade them.
Mm.
The right game, right time needs to come. But
I
it's easier
completely
said than
agree.
done. It's easier said than done, right? Like
Yeah, but
that's
I mean, I've been saying exactly the same thing for years. I think it's clear that's what we need.
Mhm.
We need the one big awesome game that everybody wants to play. And when you have the big awesome game that everybody wants to play, like I said, this if the economy is there and the demand is there, the it will sort of take shape organically just by virtue of its own existence, right? Now, you mentioned Tezos as being a place where that could potentially happen. What does a blockchain ecosystem like that of Tezos have to offer in that sense? Why is this a good place for that to take place?
I think the same reason why so many people who were making NFTs flock to Tezos, because there's a supportive community, lots of good documentation on how to implement stuff and use Tezos as a blockchain. How it's been built in the ways that you can kind of like profit share, where because I messed around making some NFTs on Tezos block back in the day, and it was really easy and fun to do. But also having in the able to like, okay, this percentage goes to this percentage is going to this. That's built in, and there's so much documentation on it, and also the speed and the price to do these transactions, I think that's above and beyond any other blockchain as well. And that's going to be an important thing. No one wants to, if you're like trading something in a game, the thing gamers don't like that they're impatient, right? You don't want to like wait for something to happen. Like, I don't want to
Mm,
like, when I trade something, I want it to be instant. I don't want to like wait for like the gas to clear or what have you, or something's holding it back. You don't want that. People
yeah.
don't want that sitting in like a matchmaking thing for too long. Then the game's pretty much like done. So I think those are the key things that Tezos has, and it's just there. It's just ready to go. We just need the right game, uh, which I'm very hopeful that it'll appear. It'll come.
As am I. And as we sort of move toward that, which honestly feels like an inevitability, at some point somebody's going to make a game, and that's going to be and it's that's when it's all going to kick off, right? Um, but as we move toward that, I know we touched on this earlier, and I said I wanted to get you to expand on it because I am genuinely curious.
Okay.
Um, Resistance from the sort of traditional gaming world to blockchain technology and Web3 entering their world. I've talked about it with many people who've come on here to talk about Web3 gaming. From your perspective, does that resistance exist, and what is it based on?
So a lot of that, I would say this is a good time because a lot of that heat from like blockchain and NFT making rising the prices of graphics card, that's now all gone to AI. So now everyone, all the like curmudgeon gamers now detest anything AI because that's what's inflating the price of graphics cards right now. It's not
Mm,
NFTs anymore or blockchain. But like with anything, good branding, right? And like I said before, just not using the word NFT or the acronym NFT anymore, and just like going ahead and implementing the use the technology as the backbone for that. I don't think anyone would have a problem with it now. I think right now is like a great time to just move forward with this tech, because that yeah, a lot of that started with like 2021 when there was like a supply chain issue and people were buying like tons of like graphics cards, the 3000 series Nvidia cards or whatever, and the prices were all jacked up. You couldn't find them anywhere. So everyone was in saying that like, oh, the crypto bros are against the gamers and they're making the prices that they're taking our games away, right? So then when they saw people like putting NFT, shoehorning NFT into games, they're like, oh, they just want to take our money. They're just making everything expensive. I think a lot of that still is around, but it's kind of disappeared. Now the crosshairs are on AI
yeah.
bros.
But I mean, like you said, if you implement it and it works,
Yeah.
Don't use the word NFT because if you try to include that word, it's probably going to raise hackles on some people. I've never heard the story of the graphics cards being bumped up by the crypto bro community. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it was
Now,
like Ethereum. It was during Ethereum's people mining Ethereum near the end of it, I think.
okay,
That
that's interesting. Now we could go on all day. I have like lots of questions that I was not able to get to. Unfortunately,
okay.
we're coming to the end of our time here. To all our viewers, thanks for watching. If you'd like to get in touch with us, our social media contacts can be found at tezoscommons.org/TezTalks. We'd love to hear from you. Billy, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for
It's
having me.
been awesome to speak to somebody actively participating in the Tezos ecosystem and has so much insight into what I think is such an important use case for this technology. Is there anything you wanted to plug or mention before we sign off here?
Sure. If I'm going to just plug the two things. One thing is my baker. If you need to stake some Tez, or you need some help setting up a baker, you can find me at Bacon BAKIN.ca, and that'll give you access to all my socials. Also, I have a gaming podcast that if anyone wants to listen to, it's called Boss Run, and that's available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, X. Just search for Boss Run Podcast and you'll find it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
To everyone out there in Tezos land, thanks for joining us on Tez Talks Live. I'm Stu from the Tezos Commons, and our awesome guest has been the one and only Billy Housh. Now let's go make Tezos powered gaming a huge part of the future.
Take care.